Trey Wingo here with you with another edition of the Chop Shop, where we talk football and what we saw in Week 16 of the NFL season with my good friend Mark Schlereth, who was working over the holidays. You had the first game on Saturday, right? The game between the Lions and the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes, indeed I did. And, at halftime, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers called off the dogs. But I will tell you, I mean, first off, like 5 coaches had COVID. On a staff that's already been diminished because they fired the GM and Matt Patricia. So
right.
It was a mess. The funny thing is the defensive coordinator, the guy who called plays on defense, is the head coach. He's the assistant to the head coach as an analyst. Like he crunches a bunch of numbers, and they said, well, he's got the most experience with the defense because he's been assisting Matt Patricia. And there's this
how'd that work out?
And there's this almost Disney-like story, like, hey, the lead nerd researcher comes in and calls defensive plays, and they set the world on fire. And unfortunately, Tom Brady picks them apart. And
47 points later, that didn't work out. Yeah. I would say it was funny listening to the reaction that you got from people. Like, they were very upset that you were saying Tom Brady is good. So, I mean, like, I don't some people are just predisposition to be miserable and hate everything. Like, what are you supposed to say in a game where Tom Brady is dominating? Boy, he missed that throw in the flat. I mean, that's really the difference in the game today.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I got to talk to Tom, obviously, via Zoom. Yeah. And so we talked he's a very interesting dude because I get this sense that he just wants to be one of the guys, but he's uber famous, right? And so it's hard. Like, he's just really, like, he's a guy that really, he pays for everybody to do the TB12 stuff if they want to. He's very helpful with the young guys. He's very nurturing. So he does all this stuff. But I just asked him point blank. I said, what is it? Why does everybody, want to write your obituary? I asked him, why do people hate you so much? And he just laughed out loud because I understand that when we were in New England, we had a lot of success and people, really don't like that. But the guy, and just talking to him, I haven't really seen much of a drop off from the time he was 28 to the time he was 33 to the time he was 38 to the time he was 43. No real physical drop off in the way he throws the ball, and he was exceptional in the first half of that game against Detroit. So I don't know. I mean, I love greatness. Like, let it run. I love the greatness.
Well, the one thing that had been the knock on him in this offense this season had been the inability to connect with the deep ball, and that was not a problem against the Lions. Now, we do caveat against the Lions,
right?
Which you have to throw that in there because I think not only did they not have a lot of the coaches, I'm not sure a lot of the players were actually there and fully participating.
Yeah, well, I think there's that part of it. I also think there's a couple of interesting things that have happened. He said during the course of his time in New England, they always got together, between they do a period and then they go back and work on what they screwed up, what wasn't right, why the defense is doing a period. He goes, I get into Tampa, he goes, you can't do it. It's so freaking hot and humid that guys are just trying to get recovered before the next period. So he goes, now all of a sudden the last month of the season, we've been able to get that extra work in that we never were able to get in during the season like we used to in New England from, September on or October on when it cools down. So he goes, that was part of the process. I think the other part of the process is with he and Bruce Arians. In New England, they were a pre-snap football team, meaning they're going to motion, they're going to do all these things to try to discover, are you in man? Are you in zone? What are you playing? Bruce Arians is a post-snap guy. He wants to line up more in static formations, and he wants you to read the middle linebacker and the safety and decide what they're in and throw off of that stuff. And so there's been this amalgamation of two different philosophies that they're trying to come together on. And I think that's one of the reasons it's just taking time for them, to really gel and become, what they look like they could become down the stretch here when they've been great the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, caveat against the Falcons and against the Lions, but you're absolutely right. And Arians himself has said, it's going to take next season before he's fully functioning and aware of everything else in this offense. So that was one of the 3 games on Saturday. We'll get to the conclusion of the Saturday game in a minute, which was just insane. But it started with the Friday game. I feel like Week 16 took forever. There was a game Friday, with 3 Saturday, a full slate Sunday, and then let's throw the cap right on Monday night. It just felt like it just never ended. But the Friday game was ridiculous with Alvin Kamara. First of all, his cleats won the weekend. The red and green shoes were just phenomenal. And then he scores 6 touchdowns. And honestly, he should have had 7. I have to believe that Sean Payton was not aware that the record was a possibility when he put Taysom Hill in at the 1-yard line. Or all of us need a relationship where they love each other as much as Sean Payton loves Taysom Hill. I mean, their bond is something that we should all aspire to, because there's no other reason for Taysom Hill to be in that game to get that 1-yard plunge when Alvin Kamara has a chance to set, tie, or break the most touchdowns in a single game than the fact that Sean Payton is just fully in bloom love with Taysom Hill.
Hey, there's no question. It's what was it? My word is stronger than oak. My love is stronger than oak for Taysom Hill. Interestingly enough, that's something you go into the game. I don't think you ever expect somebody to score 6 touchdowns. So it's not one of those things. Right. It's not like a rushing title, right? Or, hey, my guy needs 47 yards to get 2,000 or whatever it is. Like, I played in a game week 17, I guess it was the 16th game, week 17, where Terrell Davis needed 177 yards rushing to break 2,000, right? And I mean, there was no way that he wasn't going to get that record. We were going to get him that record. And, we would be, after every run, we'd be leaning over the sideline. How many does he need? And they'd be like 77, and 68 and 42. And I mean, every run we were on it until he broke it and he had 2007 and he could go out. But that's different than, you just don't expect the guy to get 6 touchdowns. So I just don't even think Sean Payton was aware when he put in, I just want to be your lover boy. And
his bromance.
Yeah, he handed it off to Mike Reno, and Mike Reno scored a touchdown in his red leather pants.
Everybody was working for the weekend. There's no question.
Exactly. So I think once he got to the sideline and realized, oh, shoot, if we get down there again, Kamara's getting the ball. But it was really cool, and you're 100% right. He did win the weekend with those shoes. And I don't know what happened to Minnesota and Minnesota's defense. I mean, I know they lost Linval Joseph, but Lord have them. And I know, they were down a couple of linebackers, and Kendricks didn't play, and a couple other guys didn't play. But, man, that was just an ass whooping of biblical proportions.
Well, not only that, it's a good thing that Kamara was doing what he's doing. And I get there are certain reasons why, but it's pretty clear that Drew Brees can't push the ball down the field right now. Now, 11 fractured ribs will do that to you, and you can tell that he was protecting it. But those were issues with the Saints offense even before Drew Brees hurt his ribs. Now, I get it. Mike Thomas has not been there for most of the season. They believe he'll be back and healthy for the playoffs. But if you're a Saints fan, that's a real concern for you right now. We have not seen the ability consistently all season long, for a myriad of reasons, for them to be able to push the ball down the field through the air.
Yeah, if you look at explosive plays in the passing game, they're down on the bottom of the barrel in the NFL from an explosion, meaning 20-plus yard passing plays. They just don't, unless they throw it short and somebody breaks the tackle, or they get, somebody wide open on a blown coverage, they're just not pushing it down the football field very often. It doesn't happen. Now, and you talked about Thomas. That's the guy that runs the underneath routes anyhow. He runs the shallow crosses. He runs, all the stuff that's underneath, because he's big, he's physical, he gets open that way. He's not really a, hey, let me go over the top type of guy. So it's not part of their offense, but you're right. They are very limited when it comes to pushing the ball down the football field, really taking deep shots. They just don't do it very often.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with them going forward. And then we had the late game on Saturday. I was watching that game, and I'm saying to myself, at some point they have to put Fitz in, right? Because Tua was struggling the entire game to get anything going in the passing game. And they put Fitz in, they march right down the field, score the 1 touchdown. And then, of course, the defense gives up the big play, and then they get down there. And I want to say one thing about the Raiders and the way they attacked it. I believe they did the right thing strategically to not score the touchdown. Go ahead, kick. They didn't have any timeouts. The Dolphins did not have any timeouts. So people are going to debate that, well, they should have scored and gone for the touchdown. Not really, because then you're going to take less time off the clock and you're going to give them more opportunities to do what they did. The real issue for me is how the Raiders lost that game, is how dumb do you have to be to give up a sideline play to a team that has no timeouts, right? I mean, that, to me, if you're talking about the egregious error in that game, they let them have a rail shot down the sidelines. And, oh, by the way, let's throw in a 15-yard decapitation face mask penalty. So if you're going to be mad at the Raiders for their strategy, be mad at the fact that they had a guy wide open on the sideline. That's the one thing you cannot do. Make sure you protect the sideline, push him back in the middle, you tackle him, the friggin' game is over. I had zero issue with the way the Raiders executed the goal line situation, but to give up the sideline was an egregiously stupid mistake.
Well, there's no question about that, especially giving up the sideline in a cover 2 situation where you're throwing a hole shot. So the safety's not over there. The corner doesn't get that. Like, it doesn't hurt you to complete a 12-yarder in front of the corner and have him rally up. And even if the guy gets out of bounds, it's 12 freaking yards. But to give up the hole shot, to get the face mask penalty, how's it been going for the defense of the Raiders since they fired their defense coordinator? Yeah. I'm sure that Paul Gunther is sitting at home right now going,
wasn't me.
Yeah, hey, you guys had problems while I was there. You have even more problems now, so that's not my fault.
I will say this, though. The unabashed joy that I get from watching Ryan Fitzpatrick play well, I'm not sure there's anything better. And for people that don't know, for everything that he's accomplished in his career, he's never made the playoffs. He's never been in the postseason. And now, thanks to that ridiculous play where, his head was turned backwards and they kicked the field goal, he has a shot. He has a shot to make the playoffs. And I'm curious how Buffalo's going to play it because, I think they have the 2 seed locked up, don't they?
I believe so. Yes.
Because they have the tiebreaker. Well, I have to look at the Titans and figure out what their situation is. But I mean, I don't know what Buffalo's playing for in this game against a Miami team and a defense that is hungry and good. So, I'm curious to how Buffalo's going to play this thing because obviously the only thing that would matter to them in the playoff scenario now, if something happened to the Chiefs, then they would have home field advantage for the AFC title game, which is exactly what happened a year ago when Tennessee went into Baltimore, knocked them off, and that's how Kansas City got home field advantage.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing. I mean, it does with the extra playoff berth and with the only one seed getting a bye. It does make it seem like, I mean, we're playing all the way through week 17. Everybody seems to have something to play for, which is that part of it has worked out tremendously. I don't think there's any question about it. Buffalo, unbelievable. Miami, as you mentioned, just unreal. And I will say this about, QB number 2, where teams have just gotten to the point where there are a lot of teams that don't want to spend the money on having a veteran quarterback. And it makes zero sense to me. It drives me nuts. Like, listen, man, pay the guys, because what ends up happening to QB number 2, if you're a young guy and you have very few reps and you have very few games of experience, you get in, if you're called upon, then you can't lean on that experience you had, and you get no reps during the week. You get zero. You work the scout team at best. You get a handful of reps here and there. And then everybody wonders why the guy comes in and stinks, I mean, I just think that that's an area where the smart teams invest wisely in that guy. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I know, what is he, 37 right now? Dude, there are going to be dozens of teams knocking on his door, right? To come in there and compete for a starting job, to groom a young player, whatever the case may be. And why would you not want that veteran set of eyes and that energy that he brings? I mean, that to me is a no-brainer. I don't care what it costs you.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about Fitz is, the team they were winning with him. They were winning with him, and he was playing well. Obviously, the defense was a big part of it. So he really felt like this was his team for the year. And then, he got the news, and he didn't like it, but he took it well. And he's been the ultimate teammate for Tua. And I will say this, the cool thing is seeing their relationship. Like, Tua was so pumped when he came in and played well. And even though Tua took Ryan's job, he was very supportive of Tua the entire way. So that part of it is great. So now we're in this weird scenario, Mark, where this is going to happen. We're going to have a 10-win team miss the playoffs in the AFC. We could potentially have an 11-win team miss the playoffs in the AFC. And we could have a 6-win team win the division in the NFC. And we could have an 8-win team make it in the NFC. Nothing speaks louder, I believe, to the direction of the talent in both conferences than those two stats. A 10-win team's not going to make it. An 11-win team might not make it. A sub-500 team is going to win the division, and an 8-win team could also get into the NFC. There is a clear discrepancy and disparity between the AFC and the NFC this season.
Yeah, let me ask you: do you really think it's the AFC is that much better, or do you think there is, a glut of teams at the top, and then there's a bunch of really bad teams, and so you get a lot of wins that way, where there's more competitiveness in the NFC.
Here's the way I would answer that. To me, obviously, I still believe the best team is Kansas City, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. Buffalo is playing really, really well. When Tennessee is right, they're really good. When Indianapolis is right, they're really good. And outside of Green Bay, I believe Green Bay is the clear best team in the NFC right now. But we've seen the Saints and their struggles. We've seen Tom Brady play really well and play really poorly. To me, they're two like pendulum teams in the league. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay is one of them. 1 week, great. Next week, terrible. They've put together some wins now, which is a good thing. And Tennessee is the other team in the AFC that feels that way. 1 week they can't do anything wrong. And then the next week they go out and don't play for a half against Cleveland. And then they get blown away by Aaron Rodgers in the snow in Green Bay. So I do think the depth in the AFC is significantly better in terms of teams that have the ability to put it together than I do in the NFC.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Although it's really interesting because having, I mostly do NFC games. Having had Tampa on several different occasions, their roster is as good as any roster in the league. I mean, from just a pure talent standpoint, they are as good as anybody in the league. But you're right. There's a pendulum swing. There are times when they play exceptionally well. There are times when they just flat don't. And that inconsistency bothers me. Same thing with New Orleans to a degree. Even in the game they won or they lost to Kansas City, I think it was 32-29. Yep. They were lights out defensively, lights out in the first half, and they were down 14-9 at the end of the first half. And at the end of the day, that game was 32-29. It was a defensive struggle. When do you ever hear 32-29 and think, man, what a defensive struggle that was? But it really was. It's an anomaly. Can Drew Brees find his form again? Listen, you are not going to run the ball like you ran the ball on Christmas night against Minnesota Vikings. No. That is such an outlier. So there's going to have to be a better balance. There's going to have to be more on the arm of Drew Brees in that passing game. And that part scares me a little bit because I saw him in Kansas City not play very well. I know he was coming off the rib injuries, but still that Christmas Day game, you're going to complete passes in that game because you're getting 9 yards a clip every time you run the ball, whether it was Murray or whether it was Alvin Kamara. So that one scares me a little bit. I don't know what they are offensively right yet.
Okay, and this brings us to Kansas City because I have said all along, and I still believe it, I think they're the best team in football. But I don't think enough people understand what they're trying to accomplish, something that you have experienced yourself, winning back-to-back Super Bowls. It's a different deal. It's a different dynamic when you walk in as the Super Bowl champ. Everyone wants you. Everyone wants to knock you down because you're the standard. And I don't think people fully understand the mental strain that takes on a team. And I think that Kansas City, since about week 5, has been like, we know we're flipping great. We know we're a damn good football team. Can we just get to the postseason and get there healthy? And take us through a little bit of what that's like mentally, because you guys, you did it. You know what it takes to pull that off. And I don't think people fully appreciate how difficult it is. There's a reason we haven't seen it since Super Bowl 38 and 39 with the Patriots.
Yeah, it is one of those things. Now, obviously, they don't have the glut of media where they have to deal with that being in the locker room and just all the the pomp and circumstance of being 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, 13-0 and all that stuff. But the pressure, definitely the mental pressure that is put on you as a player, because everybody expects you to win. You're sitting around at your house and your parents call you, guys, can you go undefeated? That was never the goal. The goal was not to go undefeated, but this is all you hear. This is all you talk about, or this is all that is talked about to you from your family, from your friends, from your college teammates, from, like I said, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles. People are calling you, and it weighs on you. There's no question about it. It weighs on you. That's why a lot of times, we say, hey man, there's, you never want to lose, but there's almost a good loss. Because when you do lose, especially late, it is an opportunity to take that pressure off you and then to really look at the issues. A lot of times there are always going to be issues. There's never been a perfect game that has been played. So there are always going to be issues that you need to address. But when you're winning and you're blowing people out and you're better than everybody else and you can flip the switch, a lot of times those issues are, oh, ha, 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 ha. You know, we can't have a holding call there. We can't jump off sides there. Hey, eventually that could get you. But it really is never, it's all talked about, but it's never really cemented. And until you experience that loss. So I think there's a lot of things that just weigh heavy on you. And there are some things that get glossed over that are important not to be glossed over, but it's because you're winning. It's hard to really address them honestly. And so all those things kind of pile on you as you roll through this. Now, the decision, Trey, is you're coming to the last game of the season. You have the bye. How do you operate that? Yeah. Right? How do you give your players some time off? Do you
Andy has said he's going to rest some starters. Like, I would be shocked if Kelsey were there, if Mahomes plays, Tyreek. I think they're going to be a very watered down team. And again, it's that sort of rest versus rust thing. And we saw that play out in 2009 when both the Saints and the Colts started 13-0. And then I think the Saints lost the last 3 games, and the Colts, just quit on halftime of that one game against the Jets. And I think they lost 2 of their last 3. But they both made it to the Super Bowl that year, so there's no definitive way to do it because you've seen it play out. And you guys had that situation for you, and it worked out for you one time and it didn't work out another time when you got caught by Jacksonville.
Yeah. In 96, because we had a lot of injuries. So we rested a lot of guys. We were 13-3, but we had locked up the playoffs in the first round bye in December, like middle of December. And so when guys getting surgery, guys getting worked on, guys missing time. And so we essentially didn't really play a lot of guys the last 2 weeks of the season, and then had that bye week. And yeah, I think it is one of those things. I think especially on the offensive side of the ball, there's a certain amount of reps, there's a certain amount of pace, there's a certain amount of rhythm that you have to have. And when you sit out for a long period of time, it's like the baseball team that sweeps through the playoffs and then they have a long layoff before they get to the World Series and then they get swept. Like, there's nothing that replaces actually playing. And you can't fabricate that by taking live batting practice. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, we saw that with the Packers in 2011 when Rodgers had his MVP season, and they had the first round bye and they were rusty in that loss to the Giants that year. All that being said, I think you have to preface this with Kansas City. You can make all these arguments. Yeah, they're squeaking by. They're not really playing at their peak. All that's true. But here's the other thing that's true. In the last 24 games that they tried to win, they're 23-1, going back to their last loss last year in Nashville, the playoffs in this season. They played a top 5 defense with Patrick Mahomes as their starter 9 times. They're 9-0 in those games, and they're averaging 29 points against the top 5 defense. And oh, by the way, they've just set an NFL record for winning 6 straight games by 6 points or less. And if the metric, as we always say, is how good are you in one-score games, they're, amazing at one-score games. So you can say all those things and they're not playing well, but at the end of the day, they're playing exactly like the Patriots did when they won Super Bowls 38 and 39. Everyone thinks of the Patriots as the 2007 Patriots under Bill Belichick. That was the outlier year, the double middle finger to the league. They didn't win the Super Bowl that year. When they win Super Bowls, they just find a way to win games, and they win a lot of close ones. And I think that more than anything else is what you need to focus on when you focus on Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the fact that they can just seemingly, if they get the ball back, it doesn't seem to matter what kind of time they have, if they have timeouts, if they don't. They just have enough guys to make plays. And they did it again against Atlanta where, the cornerback drops an interception that would have probably sealed the deal. And the next,
I think teams lose games. More teams
right.
lose games. You're right. The next play was the touchdown to Marcus Robinson. That was a game-winning play that they didn't make, and Mahomes said, "Fine, I'll just go ahead and make this one."
Right, and that's who they are. And I have a ton of respect. And the Bronco in me really hates saying this about Kansas City because I used to like to call them September darlings. They're going to be great in September, and then they were just going to roll over come playoff time. But they have this ability to turn it on when they need to. And it's an incredible ability, man. And they are obviously they're the best of the best right now. And there's some good teams. I think there's some teams that can compete with them. Buffalo being one, the Packers being another. Obviously, the Saints showed that they can compete with them. But at the end of the day, if you give them a minute and a half, they're going to beat you.
Yeah, the only criticism I have of Kansas City right now is sometimes I think they're too cute for their own good. The game on Sunday, it was a 4th and 1. They did the little twirl formation, toss to Sammy Watkins, who tried to throw it back to Mahomes. Just run it up the gut. And I've seen that a couple of times in goal line situations against the Bucs. They try to, don't run sideways against the Bucs defense. That's not going to work. I think every once in a while they get a little too cute, which leads me to believe I think they're just a little bored. I think they're just trying shit to see if it works sometimes, right? People do that.
Oh, yeah. Let's pull something out that we saw in some game in 72,
1943,
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that
Delaware State Championship game.
But here's the beauty of that for Andy Reid. And we used to say this all the time. When I was part of those back-to-back championship teams in Denver, the biggest thing we fight is boredom.
Yeah.
We are so good. We are so good that boredom is what can catch up to you. So part of that is brilliance by the coaching staff saying, let's give them something. Let's do something that's outrageous. Let's do something that gets them excited about, oh my God, like the little shovel pass in a 4x1 formation, a little shovel pass over to Kelsey for a touchdown, or a 2-point convert, whatever it was. Like, I think they do that stuff just to keep their players, engaged. And I think that part is smart.
Okay. So there's two teams I think they're playing better than anybody right now. I think by far right now heading into the postseason, Green Bay and Buffalo are playing you saw them against Denver. Granted, I get it. Denver had no defensive backs, all that kind of stuff. Well, they just went up and embarrassed Bill Belichick on Monday Night Football. That's one of the biggest losses he's ever suffered, along with the 2017 season opener against Kansas City, where they blew him out. That was the Kareem Hunt introduction game. So if you're a veteran team that's been through this a bunch, would you rather be sort of where Kansas City is, or would you rather be the way sort of Green Bay is and Buffalo is right now? Everything is clicking at the best time right now for those two teams. But are you willing to say you have more faith in them or more faith in Kansas City, who just wanted to get there and now they're ready to roll?
I love that everybody is clicking part. I love that. And in theory, that sounds great. We're rolling and we feel good. But I'm telling you, everybody who's playing right now is beat up, is broken. They take COVID tests all the time. They're like rest, everything. Like this week of rest and preparation, what it does for your body is such a huge advantage, such a huge advantage. Now you gotta, there's preparation and you gotta avoid the rust. But the advantage for Kansas City to have that bye is, it is gigantic.
Yeah, and just so people understand from a historical perspective, the last time a team made it to Super Bowl Sunday without a bye was Super Bowl 47, when the Ravens, took down Andrew Luck and the Colts on Wild Card Weekend, went to Denver, the Raheem Moore play, the overtime game and the Jacoby Jones play. And then obviously they took care of the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. So we're talking about Super Bowls 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. I'm not good at math, but that's 7 straight Super Bowls, which means 14 straight teams have made it there with the bye, and only one team is getting the bye. We know it's Kansas City, and I think it's as long as Green Bay takes care of business, it's going to be them in the NFC. That thing is absolutely critical. But I do have to shout out to what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have done in Buffalo, because we hear all this tank for Trevor and all this kind of stuff. If you don't put a team around a quarterback, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I think what the Bills have done has been a remarkable building of a culture and a football team, because they drafted a quarterback that they believe in Josh Allen, and they have surrounded him with all the right weapons. The Cole Beasley pickup last year, very underappreciated, because he helped Josh Allen with easy throws underneath, which helps his completion percentage. Then you go get a Stephon Diggs, who has set all kinds of records for them to take them over the top. They draft a tight end in Dawson Knox that has been very successful. I think what Beane and McDermott have done is the thing that good teams do, and the mistakes that bad teams make all the time is, well, we'll just go get another quarterback. No, you need to put a team around a quarterback or it doesn't mean shit.
I think there's one other part of that. Brian Dable,
Yeah, absolutely.
Who has walked in there and said, I am not worried or concerned about my system. I am going to create a system based upon what this quarterback can do.
Correct.
And that system has been this constant evolution. And it's so funny, when I did their game, Trey, I was really thinking Buffalo, run the ball, and Allen's going to have some quarterback option type plays and all this stuff. And then you put them on film and they are motioning out 3-by-2 formations, find the one-on-one and throw it to that guy. And it was incredible because Cole Beasley does not have an actual route tree. Everything he runs is essentially, hey, based on leverage, get open routes and I'll find you. And then Stephon Diggs does a lot of the things. You talk to guys like Peyton Manning who say, I don't want that route running 11. I run it right at 12. And if you cut it off short, Whereas Stephon Diggs goes, hey, you just run it any depth you want. I'll find you. And I've got the hose to get it there. And that's, they almost,
he does have a hose, man. That touchdown in the back of the end zone on Monday night, I was like, damn, that was a howitzer on the move. That was as good of a throw as I've seen all year.
Dude, 6'5", 240, 245, can run, and oh, by the way, is super smart. Like had a big time 37 out of 40 on the Wonderlic or something. I mean, smart kid, unbelievable athlete. And I'll tell you one thing I love about this kid, man. He's got some snark to him. He'll get after you. So I played him at the Super Bowl. I played him in shuffleboard. And so we played at shuffleboard. He beat me in shuffleboard. And so I get on a conference call with him and I said, I go, hey, but you owe me a rematch in shuffleboard. He goes, oh, by the way, he goes, I retired. So you're just going to have to eat that. I was like, phenomenal. I love this kid, man. I love it.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
Right? He's just like, I live in your head for the rest of your life.
And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. So listen, the one team that I think honestly can give Kansas City fits. Kansas City can't sleepwalk against Buffalo. They're gonna have to play their best game if those two meet up in what would be the AFC Championship game, the way it plays out. All right, what game you got for the final week of the season?
Final week, I'm in Carolina for the Saints at Carolina.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the Saints play this going forward and see if they can expand anything on that passing game. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask, is there a poop story this week? Because we've had 2 straight weeks with a poop story. Is there anything good?
I mean, I've always got a few poop stories, I mean, there's always.
Well, tell you what, let's do this then. Let's save those for the postseason edition of this, because if we're going to have the good poop. But I will tell you this, and you'll appreciate this. Everyone knows the story now. We put it on the website, Half Forgotten History. Check it out wherever you see your podcast. That you totally hosed me on Super Bowl 42 with the play call at David Tyree. But I finally realized why you did that, because that was payback. Because I went out mountain climbing this morning, and you've had how many surgeries on your knees?
20 on my knees.
Yeah, 20 on his knees. So I, in my brilliance, when we were out for Super Bowl 42, I said, hey, Mark, there's this great hike called Camelback Mountain. I do it all the time out. You want to go? You're like, yeah, let's go. So we made it up there, no problem. And my God, I thought you were not going to make it down the mountain. I thought you weren't going to make it. And your freaking knees swelled up like grapefruit for the rest of the week. And that was on me. So I literally put you through physical hell. And I'm just now making the connection as I got back from a hike this morning. That's why he boned me on the play-by-play, because I crushed whatever cartilage was left at his knees on that hike.
I wish that I could say, yes, I did that on purpose. But I was just so fascinated with Eli Manning escaping what I thought was for sure sack that I didn't pay attention to the completion.
Yeah. By the way, fun fact, Eli and Archie will be on a special episode together of season 2 of Half Forgotten History.
Awesome.
And we're going to find out what it's like to be Archie Manning, knowing that like anti-Brady matter just flows through your veins. How great is that?
That's awesome. That is awesome.
So we'll look for that on the same YouTube channel. You'll see this. So again, hope you had a great Christmas. Have a great New Year. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the Saints-Panthers game on Sunday, brother.
Happy New Year, buddy.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right.